Welcome to the 23rd chapter of the book of 2 Samuel. Have a little hiatus for about a week. Here in Oregon, state in the United States on the West Coast, we had these giant fires. And for 2 days, the winds were blowing from the east across these fires to the West Coast, where I live right on the beach, filled up the town of Newport with smoke. For a couple of days, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. I have a HEPA filter, air purifier, which I turned on, went into my bedroom, and for 2 days I had to stay in the bedroom to keep out of the smoke. But the HEPA kept the air really clean. And then finally the air winds turned around and came off of the ocean, went inwards towards the desert, and took the smoke away. So the last week I wasn't able to do any video seminars because of the interruption because of the weather, but now we're back with the continuation of the book of 2 Samuel, and it begins the last words of David. And these are the last words of David, eschati. We have eschatology and theology. It's the study of the last times. But these are the logi words. Pistos, trustworthy David, son of Jesse, and pistos anir, a trustworthy man whom God raised up. Christon theou. Let me read this whole verse in Greek, as I mentioned. Ke uti ilogi David, e eschati pistos David, eosiase, ke pistos anir, on anestason o theos, Christon theou, Yaakov, ke evprepis o psalmos to Israel. So the last words of David, pistos, 4103. Interesting word. King James uses these words as faith, and I don't use the word faith at all in the Apostolic Bible, mainly because of this word pistos. Pistos is an adjective, number 4103. So trustworthy David. If it was another word, a beautiful David, it would be an adjective modifying the noun David, tells you about him. So it makes it an adjective. If it was a noun, instead of an adjective, like a word, well, how would I say this? Not a trustworthy. The word is of trust. Then you would use the word pistis, which is number 4102 in the Apostolic Bible, in a lexical concordance. So belief is the word and trust. And pistos here, the adjective, is trustworthy or believing and sometimes sure. Now, the reason I don't use the word faith is because of the next one, 4100, which is the word, a verb, pistevo, to trust or to believe. You can't use the word faith in a verb. It doesn't make sense. You have to add other words to it. He has faith. He will have faith. He can't faith something. You can believe David. You can't faith David. So the pistevo, 4100, and there's also another verb that's very similar, pistoo. It's another verb, 4104, and it means to be trustworthy, to confirm, sort of similar to the pistos adjective, trustworthy. To be trustworthy would be pistoo. Pistevo would be to trust or to believe. Now, trust and believe. When do you choose one over the other? Now, You wouldn't say believe-worthy David. You could be believing, the believing David. These are the last words of David. Believing David, son of Jesse, I suppose, but it doesn't make much sense. Trustworthy David fits it like really better. Now, you can have belief without trust, and you can have trust without belief. A little child, 4 years old, trusts his father when he tells him to do or not to do something and so forth. He doesn't believe him. Belief isn't, he doesn't sit there in his brain and think, well, do I believe my dad is saying this or not? No, he doesn't believe at all. He trusts that his father is telling him the right thing to do. But now, to believe without trusting would be something like it says about the devil. The devil believes, but the devil certainly doesn't trust God. He's the enemy. So you can have somebody believing without really trusting. They can understand something, but maybe not have a trust. Depends on the context, really, how you use it. It's very difficult, but faith doesn't fit into this at all. So that's why I never use the word faith. I hope this all makes a little bit of sense. So, pistos, the adjective, trustworthy David, son of Jesse, a trustworthy man, whom God raised up. Christon, anointed one of the God of Jacob. Christon, we have Christos in the nominative. Here it's the accusative, the object of the sentence, not the subject, but the one that was anointed by the God of Jacob. And for beauty, the Psalm of Israel, and there's Psalmos into Psalm, it's a transliteration. Pneuma, we have the word spirit, pneumatics, from pneuma, and pneumatics. A spirit, Kyriou, of the Lord, spoke by me. And his word, logos, was upon my glosses. The logos, Jesus was the word, calls it the word, the logos. And a tongue, we have glossolalia, that means speaking in tongues, but the glosses, the glotta, has to do with the tongue. And his word was upon the tongue. Well, that's a figure of speech. His word wasn't literally sitting on top of his tongue. It wasn't written and it was laying there. It wasn't written on his tongue, but it was going to be spoken. His word, God's word, and was coming through David to us and written down, a written word or spoken word. If you're reading it to somebody else, it would be the spoken word. In this case, it's both, written and the spoken word. It's not from me. It wasn't from David. It was from God. The Spirit of God spoke by me. I have a book. It's on our bookstore, From God to Us. It goes through all this about inspiration and so forth. Highly recommend downloading it. I think it's $12. But when you get into what makes the word acceptable as God's word, here the writer is attributing it to God, not to himself. The God of Israel spoke to me. The guardian Israel spoke. Now, does God speak to us? I believe he does through this word that he spoke to have David write down for us today. So he is speaking to us indirectly through another person. And so he is the guardian. David is talking about, he's the guardian of Israel spoke, and that was himself. I don't believe he's saying God here. A just one ruling among anthropes. He is just, not guilty, because of Jesus, or not Jesus, because of God using him. Anthropology comes from that word. Archos, phovo theou, a chief in fear of God. This is what David was. He was fearful. He was a ruler, the king, but he feared God, even though he didn't sin. And as the early morning phos comes from that, the Elios arises. Helium comes from that. The sun arises, the early morning. And it shall not darken. From brightness and from out of rain, as is pasturage from out of the earth. And pasturage gets its light and grows. For is not thus my house with God, and thus with us, the light? Jesus is the light, he says, the light of the world, and we are the light of the world. He uses us to illuminate other people on the way of God. And David here is saying that, is not my house thus with God? Isn't it enlightened by God? Yes, so should ours be. For he established an eternal covenant with me, and he established a covenant, I believe, with Jesus, with the believers. If we believe in him and stay with him until the end, to remain until the end, then we will be delivered. And David was established with an eternal covenant of the seed of David being through the eons, which was eventually Jesus. To deliver me, save is in the King James, prepared at all time, being guarded. Wow, we're prepared at all time, and we're being guarded also by God. Prepared for whatever God has for us to do, and God will guard us to accomplish his will. Now, that doesn't mean that we will not have arrows cast at us. Some of them will hurt and maybe kill us. But yet, we are guarded by God as long as he sees fit to do so. For all my soteria, deliverance, I have salvation in the King James, another word I don't use. For all my deliverance and all my will is in the Lord. For in no way shall the lawbreaker grow. So his giving the deliverance credit to God, not to himself. I don't save myself, as the King James would say, and the deliverance is ongoing. It's not a done thing. We're being delivered. Some people are being delivered in this world all their life, and they could be delivered from when they're 5 years old until they're 120, I suppose. And there would be a long time of deliverance. And all my will is in the Lord, which our will should be, doing what the Lord wants, but we always don't do that. For in no way shall the lawbreaker grow. We don't want to see sinful things to happen with other people or ourselves. As a thorn bush, acanthos is a word in gardening for an acanthic, a plant that has thorns. As a thorn bush being pushed out are all these, the lawbreakers. For not a hand shall take them. So this figurative speech of the thorn bush, and you can't grab it because it's going to stick you. And so the lawbreaker is not going to grow. It's going to be something painful. A man who shall labor among them, that is, the lawbreakers, full of an iron weapon and a wooden spear, then in fire burning they shall be burnt in their shame. You can't buy your way out. You can't fight your way out of being a lawbreaker. The only way, if you are a lawbreaker doing sin, the only way to get out for us is through the blood of Jesus Christ, his death and his resurrection, which gives us the deliverance. I can't purchase it. I can't go to a church and give them a lot of money and say, well, here's this money, so therefore I'm going to be delivered. If some churches teach that, the health and wealth, they're wrong. And you can't fight your way into heaven, just an impossibility. And that was pretty much the psalm of this 23rd chapter. It changes now after this admonition by David into going into David's mighty men. And we'll just go through this. The names, when I read them, I'll read them in Greek. These are the names of the mighty one. The Dinaston, dynasty, comes from that of David. Easavab, Easvaab, the va, for it's not ba, va. The Thecamani, he was protos first, proto of the three. This one is first of the three. Avino, the Asoneos. This one unsheathed his broadsword against 800 slain at once. Now, whether it's talking about he was like the general, so forth, in the army, I don't think he could have killed 800 people. But and then I have 5141. You can add that to your English derivatives book. More mentioned about that at the end of this video. Trauma comes from that. Slain at once. And with him, Eleazar, son of Thudi, son of his Patradelphu. You can add that. Patra, we have paternal, the father, and Adelphu is a brother. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So here we have father, a brother, uncle. Among the three mighty ones, the Trisi, the three, this one was with David in his berating among the Philistines. And the Philistines gathered together there for war, and they still are. The Palestinians, which is people are, they are shooting rockets over right now, probably, because Israel has just made a pact with, I think it was Bahrain and the United Arab Republic, something, couple of Arab countries. So the Palestinians are really mad, sending rockets in. And the men of Israel ascended before their face, and he rose up and struck the Philistines, until of which his hand tired, and his hand was cleaved upon the sword. And the Lord made a great deliverance in that day. And the people returned after him for the despoiling. And after him, Sameas, son of Agag, the Arari. And the Philistines gathered together in Theria. And there was there a portion of a agru, agriculture, a field, full of lentils. And the people fled from the face of the Philistines. And he stood in the midst of the portion, the field, and rescued it, and struck the Philistines. And the Lord executed a great deliverance, and 3 from the 30 rulers went down and entered unto David. Well, this is breaks here. And so these men went into the cave of Adullam. And the battle order of the Philistines camped in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in the citadel. Now, later this was the city of David, but I don't think early on it was. It was his stronghold, basically. And the garrison of the Philistines was in Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. And David desired and said, well, who will give me water to drink? Ethor, hydro comes from that, from out of the well in Bethlehem, at the gate. And the 3 mighty ones tore up the camp of the Philistines and drew water from out of the well in Bethlehem by the gate. And they took of it and came to David, and he did not want to drink it, and offered it as a libation to the Lord, poured it out on the sacrifice. And he said, oh, kindness be to me, O Lord, to do this. I can't do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men going with their lives? Shall I drink, this wasn't their blood, but shall I drink the men dying? He did not want to drink it. And these things the 3 mighty ones did. And Abasa, the brother of Joab, son of Saruiah, was foremost, protos of the 3. And he awakened his spear upon 300 slain. That's a figure of their awakening his spirit. You don't awaken a piece of wood, but he got it going, killed all these men. And to him was a name among the three. From the three he was honored, and was to them for a ruler. But unto the first three he arrived not. Now, it's kind of confusing who the first three and the second three, but anyway, the idea here are these strong men. And Benaias, son of Ioadiah, son of a mighty man, with great works from Kabbasael, this one struck the two sons of Ariel of Moab. And he went down and struck the lion in the midst of the pit in a snowy day. And he struck the Egyptian man, a remarkable man, and in the hand of the Egyptian was a spear. And he went down to him with a rod, and seized by force the wooden spear from out of the hand of the Egyptian, and killed him with his spear. These things Benaiah, son of Ioadiah, did, and to him was a name among the three mighty ones. He was over the 30 honorable ones, but to the first three he arrived not. And David ordered him for his reports. And these are the names of the mighty ones of David the king. Asael, the brother of Joab, among the 30. Elianan, son of Dudi, his uncle, in Bethlehem. Sameas, the Arothi, Elikah, the Arothi, Halis, the Phalti, Ira, son of Ekis, the Thekoitis. And now, normally, without this diaresis, the double dot, it would be Thekitis. But you separate the diphthong with the two vowels, omega and iota, and you pronounce each one because of this double dot. So Thekoitis. Aviezer, the Anathothetis. Mevunai, or again, alpha and iota, separate them, ai. The Asothetis. Salmon, the Akoitis, or again, separate them. Makarai, the Netophathetis. Elab, son of Bana, the Nethophathethis. Eti, son of Rivai, the one from out of the hill of Benjamin. Baneas, the Parathenitis. Idai, from out of Nakaligeas. Avi Alvon, the Aravothetis. Asmoth, the Varchmitis. Eliavah, the Salavonitis. You can see wherever I get the accent is with the dot above it, that vowel. Iasen, it's not Iasen, but Iasen. Eonathan, Sama, the Aroritis. Akiaram, now that's not a true diphthong, it's just two vowels being next to each other. AI would be a true diphthong. You have to read our English grammar to get into all of these things, which is free to download from our website, apostolicbible.com. Achiam, son of Sarar, the Arathitis. Eliphalet, son of Akasavai, son of the Machathi. Eliam, son of Ahitophel, the Gelonitu. Asare, the Carmelios. Farai, the RV. Igal, now here's double A's, but it's not a true diphthong, it's just two vowels. Igal, son of Nathan, from Suvah, Vani the Gadi, Salik the Ammonites, Naharai, not a Ra'is, doesn't have the diphthong, so it's Nahare, the Virotheos. See, there's the alpha eot again, eos. The one Aaron, the Skevi, Eoav, son of Saruiah. There we got the split. Now the Epsilon iota. Iras, the Ithreos, Garev, Ithreos. There's the va sound with the, not a b, a va. And then the re is with the r. You have to roll the r. I'm not very good at that. Probably Greeks that are listening to me are laughing. And so it'd be something like Ithreos, Urias, Itheos. In all, 30 and 7. David numbers the people in our next video seminar, chapter 24. We'll find out, and this is the last chapter of this book. Hope you'll continue with us and find out how it ends. Very interesting chapter. Until then, God bless.